Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajaka Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajaka Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, on this 29th day of December 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 9, Liberation. Chapter 9, the Dynasty of Angshuman, beginning text 12.
I'm beginning text 9, but going to text
Okay. Sorry. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. All right, 9 first. So I'll just read the English for those. Yeah. Okay, beginning text 9 and then going to 12 through 12. Text 9. When King Bhagirath approached Lord Shiva and requested him to sustain the forceful waves of the Ganges, Lord Shiva accepted the proposal by saying, "Let it be so." Then, with great attention, he sustained the Ganges on his head, for the water of the Ganges is purifying, having emanated from the toes of Lord Vishnu. Text 10. The great saintly King Bhagirath brought the Ganges, which can deliver all the fallen souls, to that place on earth where the bodies of his fathers lay burnt to ashes. Bhagirath mounted a swift chariot and drove before Mother Ganges, who followed him, purifying many countries, until they reached the ashes of Bhagirath's forefathers, the sons of Sagara, who were thus sprinkled with water from the Ganges. Okay, text 12. Yajjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmuhu kevalam dehabasmabihi. Could someone draw those curtains for me? The bright sun is there. Thank you, Nilesh. Yanjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmu kevalang deha basmabihi. Yanjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmu kevalang deha basmabihi. Yajjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmu kevalang deha basmabihi. Yajjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmu kevalam deha basmabihi. Yajjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmu kevalam deha basmabihi. Someone else? Yajjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api sagaratmaja divam jagmu kevalang deha basmabihi. Anyone online?
Yajjala sparshamatrena brahmadanda hatha api
brahmadanda hatha api
sagaratmaja divam jagmu
sagaratmaja divam jagmu
kevalam deha basmabihi.
kevalam deha basmabihi. Okay. Yajjala, whose water? Sparshamatrena, simply by touching. Brahmadanda hataha, those who were condemned for offending Brahma, the self. Api, although. Sagara atmajaha, the sons of Sagara. Divam, to the heavenly planets. Jagmuhu, went. Kevalam, only. Deha Basmabihi, by the remaining ashes of their burnt bodies. Translation. Because the sons of Sagara Maharaj had offended a great personality, the heat of their bodies had increased and they were burnt to ashes. But simply by being sprinkled with water from the Ganges, all of them became eligible to go to the heavenly planets. What then is to be said of those who use the water of Mother Ganges to worship her? Purport. Mother Ganges is worshipped by the water of the Ganges. A devotee takes a little water from the Ganges and offers it back to the Ganges. When the devotee takes the water, Mother Ganges does not lose anything, and when the water is offered back, Mother Ganges does not increase. But in this way, the worshipper of the Ganges is benefited. Similarly, a devotee of the Lord offers the Lord patram pushpam palam toyam, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, in great devotion. But everything, including the leaf, flower, fruit, and water, belongs to the Lord, and therefore there is nothing to renounce or to accept. One must simply take advantage of the bhakti process because by following this process, one does not lose anything, but one gains the favor of the Supreme Person. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So first, I'd just like to reflect a moment on the wonderful mercy of Lord Shiva in accepting this torrent coming down from the heavenly planets of the Ganges on his head, so that the Ganges can purify the devotees here who take advantage of her. So recently we've had another instance where Lord Shiva has shown great mercy, also in relationship to water. Who can remember from the 8th canto? You can say it out loud. Everyone remembers, okay. So the churning of the ocean, of milk, remember that? Actually it wasn't water, it was milk. And first thing that comes out is this deadly poison in great quantity. And so they approached Shiva to drink it, and he accepted. So he drinks this, it's inconceivable. He's drinking this large quantity of poison, but it just creates a little blue line on his neck, and so he's known as Nilakanta. But that was great mercy because it was so heavy poison that it would have killed thousands of millions. So that's the first thing. And here, in order to bring the Ganges down, of course, Bhagavad especially once for his grandfathers, who had been annihilated or by the mystic power of Kapila Muni, the heat in the body. They came in order to kill him because he took a horse, I think, for sacrifice. And they died from the fire of their own bodies, so they're lying there in the ashes. So Bhagavad, he leads the Ganges, as described here, and to the site, and their ashes are burned, are bathed in the Ganges, and they're delivered from their sins, and they can go to heaven. So that's the first installment of the mercy of the Ganges coming down to earth. But I don't know how many of you, most of you, many of you, I think, have been to Mayapur, and someone has to be a real fool to go to Mayapur and not take advantage of taking bath in the Ganges. I remember one time, that was my first time taking a bath, and I had my gumsh on, and I dove in. I just dunked in, and I was chanting, Hare Krishna, and I just felt very much purified. Nowadays, they just say, you just put some, drops on your head. So this principle here, the Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport, of offering Ganges back to the Ganges. So the Ganges doesn't lose when you take, and then it doesn't gain anything when you offer. But simply by doing that, one is benefited so much. And I was thinking, and he probably compares it to the process of offering Pattam Pushtam Palam Dhoyam to the Lord. You can get that anywhere, And it doesn't, you don't have to great expense, you don't have to know so many mantras or anything, but still, Krishna appreciates, and as he makes a point in 926, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhakta Priyachati, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. And Prabhupada makes the point in this purport in the Gita, how the real essence of what you're offering is the love. That's what he's looking for. And I was thinking that really applies to all devotional service. Krishna is known as Rishikesh, the master of the senses. And one of our meditations, why is he Rishikesh? Rishikena Sevanam Bhakta Ruchate. This is one of the definitions of bhakti. It's to use your senses and your mind and everything else in the service of the master of the senses. How do we get them? They were created by the material energy under the instruction of Krishna. So all that we have, our intelligence, mind, body, senses, money, whatever it may be, is a gift of Krishna. Yes, it may be through the medium of the demigods. They're in charge of, Varunas and the water, and Bhumi is the earth, and we've reached. But still, it's ultimately coming from God, from Krishna. And so bhakti really means that. What is that? Anasakta savishyan yataham priyunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. This principle of yukta vairagya. It's so central to our philosophy. What keeps us here? Material raga, attachment, life after life, birth after birth. And we finally come to the human form of life, but we have all of this animal propensity that we involved of. And if we don't have the association of a pure devotee, directly or through a medium of the books or devotees or somehow or other, then we can't have any clue as to who we really are, why we're suffering, what the goal of life is, how we can really enjoy all of these things that are part of our philosophy. And therefore you must remain bound by your involvement in the modes of nature and using our senses, mind in that regard. And that's what everyone is doing. And this verse in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I always, I remember when I first read it, and it just struck me as a very significant, important verse. Purushak pakatisto hi bhunkte pakati jan gunan karanang gunasangosya sadasadyoni janmasu. Arjuna is wanting to find out what is Purusha, what is Prakriti, what is the field of activity. Remember at the beginning he had these different questions. And Krishna systematically answered them. And near the end of the chapter he's talking about the different modes. And he said the Purusha. Now Purusha here means, of course, the living entity who is by nature Prakriti, but acting like the enjoyer, and therefore we're called the Purusha in the conditioned state in this particular verse. So Prakriti sto, situated in Prakriti, from which are generated the modes of nature. Bhunkte prakriti jan gunan. Now this word bhunkte is interesting because it often means enjoy, but it can also mean experience. Because we know that everything that happens in relation to the modes of nature is not enjoyable. Sometimes it's very painful. So in this case it means experiences. So Purushak prakatisto he bhunkte prakriti jan gunan experiences these modes of nature, positively or negatively, in the conditioned state. And karanam gunasangosya, very important line. Karan, the cause, how he chooses or how he associates with these modes by means of the senses and everything, sadasadyoni janmasu, will determine whether he gets a higher birth or a lower birth. And for the most part in this Kali Yuga, people who are completely in ignorance, they're associating in a very animalistic way. There's so much suffering going on today and all the time. But because people don't know the science of Bhakti Gita, they don't know that essential knowledge of the beginning when you first approach a spiritual master. I just hearing this lecture Prabhupada gave on the Madhya Lila, chapter 20, in the 22nd Avenue. He was giving these lectures on that section of the CC because that instruction to Sanatana Goswami, beginning with how he surrendered, is so important, for beginners as well as anyone. So this verse, we have our destiny in our hands. This is what you have to first learn, is that we can change our destiny by learning the science of bhakti and how to use the mind, the senses, and all the other facilities we have by connecting them to Krishna through service, through loving service. That's the whole art and science of bhakti yoga. So, Purushak Praktisto hi, you know, what is that verse we find in the 7th chapter? The same thing about the mode. Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya doratya ma me be epapadinte maya me tangtarantide. This energy of mine, which is divine because it's connected to me, gunamayi, is composed of the modes of nature. Mama maya, my maya, mamaya duratya. Very difficult to overcome, very difficult to cross over. In fact, impossible on one's own. You may think, well, why? How can I overcome death and disease? It's impossible, you know. But by surrendering unto me, one can easily cross beyond it. This is Prabhupada's word, easy. And in the purport, Prabhupada gives us the other meaning of guna, rope. If we tie up Suresh here to the chair with a rope, you know, hands and feet, you know, he won't be able to leave. As it is, he has trouble. I'm just kidding. So we're all tied hand and feet by these modes of nature. And how to transcend them? By surrendering to Krishna. How to surrender to Krishna? Hear. First thing is hearing. Hear the Bhagavad Gita, absorb it, try to employ, you know, and accept it. The thing is to accept the authority of the Guru. This was the big change in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna changed his relation, right? Because he's an eternal friend of Krishna. So he's more or less giving him all the reasons, quoting Shastra, why he didn't want to fight. But Prabhupada, you know, it makes it very clear. At the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1 and beginning of chapter 2, Arjuna wants to satisfy his own senses by not fighting. He may be giving all these arguments, you know, but ultimately it's inconceivable to him that he would, you know, be responsible or even partly responsible for the death of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya and so many other beloved relatives and things. You know, it was very traumatic. So ultimately, although he's giving these, you know, Shastric reasons, it's because of his own desire. And he knows that. And so he's paralyzed. He sits down on the cart, you know, drops his bow, which for a Kshatriya, I understand is like a great disqualification to just drop the bow. But then he makes the critical decision. Karpa nidosho bhata svabhava pritchamitvam dharma samhuda cheta. My nature as the Kshatriya has been stolen away by this miserly weakness. That's what it means. Karpa nidosho apahata svabhava. Apahata means taken away my natural Kshatriya nature, ready to fight, and especially for the good cause. Pritchamitvam dharma samhuda cheta. So I'm completely bewildered about what is the right thing for me to do, dharma. This is such a concern. What is the right thing for me to do? Not just some social dharma, but for the ultimate dharma. This comes up in the 2nd chapter, 1st canto. What is that ultimate dharma by which the soul can really be happy? Well, it's not just following my role in Varnashram, you know. It's engaging in that activity that will engender bhakti to adhokshaja, to the transcendental Lord. It has to be free from material desire, or haituki. This idea of like without motive doesn't really make too much sense. We have a motive in practicing. We want to get pure love for Godhead. But we don't want any material motive. That's the key. And everyone is working for the material motive. So it's a haituki and unceasing. Those two qualifications, if we can come to that point, then we'll become superseded, completely satisfied and happy even in this lifetime. So, the principle here of offering the Ganges back to the Ganges, that's really the whole principle. Where have we gotten this body? Where have we gotten this mind? It's all come from Krishna, ultimately, you see. When we even begin to offer it back to Him, we have so many words, so many things we could read, you see. But Prabhupada became, through the chanting, because as soon as you take part in the chanting, and then, you know, the more you pay attention, the more you put into it, the more you feel the benefit. And the more you feel, this question that this lady brought up last night, I can do so many things, but we're all complicated. What do I do? Well, the real answer basically is the chanting. That's the magic, as Mahatma Prabhu would say. That's the magic. Magic is in the chanting, because you're actually getting Krishna's association through the holy name. Now, of course, we're not chanting purely at first, but if at least we're trying to hear and chant and participate in that way. There's a tremendous sea change that takes place in your consciousness. You may not understand it at first. But what happened to me and what happened to others, is that material life just isn't satisfying anymore. Only material life. Hardly anyone just joins right away. But you have your connections and so forth. And if you're in family life, it's more difficult, but you can still do it. But if you're not, then you have freedom, and you find yourself spending more time at the temple, or reading those books that you got. The books that stay on the shelf, but then if you start chanting, boy, that's pretty cool. Let me see what it's all about, And that association through the sound, best physical sound, but also on the page and so forth, and things, changes our whole perspective in life. Now, it's not instantaneous that we become pure devotees, obviously. There's a path. And the more serious we are about following that path, which means anukalyena sankalpa patikalyasya bharjanam rakshashatiti vishyaso gopatadvevanantam nikshiptakapanye shadgana shagasadanagati. These are the 6 steps of surrender. This is surrender. So, very scientific. Anukalyasya sankalpa. Now, it's interesting. The first one is doing the favorable things. It's not that the first one is not doing the unfavorable things. Because by doing the favorable things, visiting the temple, taking part in kirtan, listening, and the basics, one will immediately experience the higher taste. To whatever degree you're purified. It may be preliminary, but you're going to experience something, So that will give you the strength. The more that you do that, to give up the things, the patikalyasya bharjanam. That's why always anukalyasya comes first. And Lord Chaitanya probably would draw the distinction between Lord Chaitanya's preaching and Krishna's preaching. Krishna demanded surrender. Sarva dharma parityajya mamekam shara. Then I will protect you, Lord Chaitanya did not do that. He just said, come, join the kirtan. He'd have these, magnificent, the first Harinam kirtan, you remember that, in the streets of Navadvip? Hundreds of thousands came out, he said, bring a torch, and they marched toward the Qazi's house. And it's described, I think, in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam, how, of course, he sent out his gendarmes to try to stop him. So they're going out, but they're really overmanned, outmanned. And they had their beards, so they tried to hide them, because they had these mass, they all got torches, and even if you accosted them, they were so ecstatic that they didn't even listen to you. So they couldn't help the Qazi. And we know Lord Chaitanya went there and he talked to him, and the Qazi agreed. And I remember the first time I went to Mayapur, we went on Harinam, in downtown Navadvip there. And the word was, we learned, everyone was aware that the Qazi had made the edict that Sankirtan will never be stopped in Navadvip, and that's going on even to this day. So that's like taking a bath in the Ganges. The sound, the transcendental sound. And the wonderful thing about it is we begin so much to chant and hear. And the Sanskrit, of course, Prabhupada, you'll find, I have several other, for my work in BBT, I had several other translations of the Bhagavatam. One is the famous Gita Press edition. I don't know if you've seen that, 2 volumes. Why 2 volumes? Because no purports, no synonyms, no transliterations, just Devanagari and translation. But when you're able to read Srila Prabhupada's books, you're getting that he's giving you. He took the trouble to put those word by words in. Nobody else does that. It's very, very rare. Even in our own publications of devotees who translate things, they very rarely put it. Kushakwada did it. That's why the book expands tremendously. But that gives you a chance to actually chant like we do every morning. And Prabhupada knew the importance of that, even if you don't understand the meaning, the very sound, And my experience is, because I remember back in Brooklyn, we didn't have any computers or anything. But Prabhupada, we'd hear Prabhupada lectures all the time, just walking through the halls of the building. They would play constantly. And we would hear, he would so often chant, quote a verse, basing his lecture on Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or other things. So we know Prabhupada liked to do it, so we said, okay, he wants us to do it, try to memorize verses, and he did. So how to do it? We have these index cards, So you put the translation, the transliteration, with room in between so you can put in the synonyms, and then you've got your stack of cards, and you share it with others. Prabhu, did you check out this verse, So I wanted to share a verse that I encountered about Lord Shiva, because this, how is Lord Shiva so, said to be the most advanced devotee? I was thinking that last, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam like that. I think it's in the Bhagavatam. So, and Prabhupada would quote it. So, there's, the first job I had, if I recall, on the books was proofreading the end of Canto 3, which was, of course, Kapila Muni, and I remember I started with Hiranyaksha and that battle. But then in fourth canto, eventually we came to chapter 24, which was called The Song of Lord Shiva. I don't know if you've all read that, but and at the beginning it says, oh, anyone who sings this song, will go back to God. So, I should try to memorize it. But then when you get to the end, there's this beautiful verse, and I wanted to just share it with you. And this is the song. It's long that the Prachetas, sang for 10,000 years underwater, and then they get the darshan underwater of Vishnu. Then they came out, and they were pure. So this is I'll give you the 4:24:52. So this is the verse. I memorized it there on the manuscript. But I don't know if anyone knows this. Padasharat padma palasha rochisha naka dutir non tokagam vidun vata padashya swima pasta sadvasam padam godo marga godustamodhusham. My dear Lord, your two lotus feet are so beautiful that they appear like two blossoming petals of the lotus flower that grows during the autumn season. Indeed, the nails of your lotus feet emanate such a great effulgence that they immediately dissipate all the darkness in the heart of a conditioned soul. My dear Lord, kindly show me that form of yours which always dissipates all kinds of darkness in the heart of a devotee. My dear Lord, you are the supreme spiritual master of everyone. Therefore, all conditioned souls covered with the darkness of ignorance can be enlightened by you as the spiritual master. So rich, and that's who Shiva really is. He's revealing this is, his mood. And he teaches this whole thing. It's quite long to the Prachetas, which they chant for 10,000 years. But so Shiva, he's a complex figure. The whole pastime that was recounted, I think, last night partially, was about the, Vrikasura. I think that was yesterday morning when I just gave class. And Vrikasura means to cut. He was a demon through and through, very determined, and so he wanted to get Shiva's mercy because he's easily satisfied, but Shiva was a little reluctant to come down from a demon, So he started cutting off, that's where he gets vrika, cutting off pieces of his body and throwing it into the flame. This is pretty demonic. And he still didn't get the darshan of Shiva, so he says, I'm going to cut my head off and let it fall into the fire. So out of compassion to prevent him from committing suicide, he comes down and appears. And this is always a mistake. Usually, when you say, you can have whatever you want. This it's dangerous. So this is what I want. Demonic. What's the? Come on, Dvijamani. What did he want? What was the benediction? You remember? Well, he didn't say that. He said, whose ever head I touch, it will explode or whatever, And this way I'll conquer the world. So Shiva had promised him anything. He said, okay. So he immediately starts approaching Shiva to test it out on him, and Shiva has to run away. He's running, and finally he goes to Vaikuntha, and Vrikasura somehow is able to follow him up there. And Vishnu, he takes the role of a little simple brahmachari. He says, oh, Prabhu, your body is so important, take it easy, just relax, So it's charming, Vishnu is charming him, and he stops, So what are you doing, Well, I got this benediction from Shiva, and I wanted to try it out on him. And he described what it was. He said, oh, Shiva, are you kidding me? He's a shyster, it's a sham. It's one of these internet shams. You bought into that. His benedictions. And of course, Vishnu, as Krishna, he has the ability to convince anyone. So look, just touch your head. You'll see it. And then you can deal with him properly. So the stupid Bhakti, boom, that was the end of Bhakti. But he died in Vaikuntha, so there was a... So Shiva was delivered by Vishnu there. But he showed his compassion by coming down to save him from suicide. So that's what he got for it. But Shiva, as we heard, Dharma Setu read somewhere, and that the reason why he's easily satisfied and he just gives the benediction without worrying about it is because he doesn't want to be bothered. He gives the minimum amount of time and then go back to worshiping. But anyway, I'm not going to argue about that. But here we have, he drank that ocean of poison, he accepted Ganges on his head, and he's also got the task, the duty of destroying the whole universe at the end. That can't be much fun, So he's all auspicious. That's what the word Shiva means. It means the one who brings auspiciousness. And he's one of I call him the modal incarnations, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, because each one is in charge of a different mode. It's not that Brahma is in the mode of passion and all, like that. But they're maintaining the world, the universes by overseeing these modes, and eventually Shiva will destroy everything with his Tandava Nritya. So he's a great soul. He's known as the best Vaishnava, and he's one of the 9 Mahajans. So this, his teachings there in the 4th canto, and I think he has other places where he instructs. We can take instruction from him. So, but I think the main thing we can come away with, one of the main things is this idea of, offering Ganges into the Ganges, offering whatever we have been given. We have our intelligence, we have our mind, we have our senses, we have some money. As Krishna says, prana ata diya vacha, etava janmasapalyam dehina hideshu prana diya vacha sheya acharanam sada. And this is also a verse for preaching, to inspire the Sankirtan devotees, or all of us. And he's walking through the forest with his friends, and he's praising the trees as so tolerant and so generous, They tolerate the scorching heat and the freezing cold, and then, and the woodsman comes and chops them down. They don't express any, they don't scream or anything. So they're very tolerant, but they're also giving. They're giving the fruits, the flowers, they're giving shade, they're giving wood, which can be used to build the houses or make paper for books, So the trees are a great example. So he says, Etava janmasapalyam. In the course of this conversation, he has this key verse. If one wants to make his birth fruitful, Etava janmasapalyam, dehinami hadehishu. That for the embodied souls, with your prana ata diyavacha, with your life force, with your wealth, with your intelligence and your words, you should give them shreya. You should give them the ultimate benediction, which of course is Krishna consciousness. It's a preaching verse, and Prabhupada felt that he was given that mission, that he would try to follow that verse, and he would invite others to do it also. You know how in building the Bombay temple, so much was involved in trying to get donations from the wealthy industrialists there who were also pious. The whole life membership program, Giriraj Swami was so involved in that, and others. So that's, these are Vaishnavas who may not have been practiced so strictly, but Prabhupada is giving them a chance to use a significant amount of their wealth in making this, building this temple, which will help everyone to become Krishna conscious, invite everyone to come, So, and it was successful. He was able to raise the money. I always felt, this is just a personal note, that when I joined, I had a job in a hospital for a year as an inhalation therapist, taking out around the oxygen and everything. And I gradually became interested in Bhakti, in Hatha Yoga. And then from there, that's another long story. I eventually came to the temple and, I got the book. But so when finally I said, what am I doing out here? I might as well join the temple, because I started chanting and meditating and reading the books, especially TLC. That really helped me. So when I joined, I had saved some money for a whole year. I had this apartment, but I had about, I think, $1,700 in the bank, which should go back to 1972. It's worth probably 5 or 6 times that what it is now. So I donated that to the temple. And I immediately became the best friends of Kirti Raj. Oh, Bhaktatam, nice to see you. So later on I found that the devotees had been collecting money to move to a Manhattan temple, which they eventually were able to do. The famous 55th Street temple we had for a few years. It was kind of legendary. Prabhupada visited, but they were still, collecting and getting. So that went into the pot, and then I just joined the temple and I didn't think about it. But what happened was later I found out that before they were able to really purchase anything, but they had quite a bit of collection, Prabhupada was trying to get that land in Bombay. And so he called up, or he, wrote to Toshan Krishna, who I think was in charge of the treasury. All the money you wanted to collect for that building in New York, send it now to Bombay so I can buy this land. And of course they did it. And then they kept collecting. Eventually they were able to get the temple in New York a few years later. So later on I heard that, I heard this story that the money had been used primarily to buy that land. I said, oh, great, so that $1,700 they went into building, and I visited the Bombay temple, and I felt I had a small part to play, But that's really what the great acharyas do. They are able to engage people at whatever level they're at in Krishna's service. And that includes the wealthy industrialists who are able to support the Indian yatra. And as the book distributors do, engage people, then they give a little bit of Lakshmi. And most, of course, we hope that they read the book and they visit the temple and they, then become devotees. And most of us read a book before we became a devotee. I certainly did. Somehow Krishna book was too much Leela for me. I was much more into philosophy. But when I get that TLC, this is fascinating, And I even got, from the Ramakrishna Mission, believe it or not, who was the main man there? It slips my mind, but Prabhupada met him. Nikolananda, thank you. He had translated, I think, or one of his disciples or someone, the 11th canto, the Uddhava Gita, not the whole, just the Uddhava Gita. So I was getting interested in Bhakti because it was Yatama Tattva. There were ways you could get into Bhakti. It was mostly impersonal. So that also really enlivened me about the whole idea of Bhakti, the Uddhava Gita, even in that translation. So anyway, that's, Prabhupada's mercy, Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and all of that is the idea. What you have, if you connect it to Krishna, beginning with your ears, your voice, your mind, hearing, chanting, then you're on your way. And that's the essence of the path. Whatever we have, if we try to engage in Krishna service, then we'll feel connected once again to Krishna, which we have been disconnected for eons from, and we'll feel that safety. Prabhupada said that pure devotee is one of the things is fearless. That fearlessness comes because what is the origin of fear? This is the verse we should know. Bhayam dutiya banaveshataksyad ishadapetasya viparhiyo asmati. Tanmahayato Buddha Abhajetam Bhaktyakayesham Gurudeva Tatma. I think this is the 9 Yogendras speaking. Anyway. So what is the source of fear? Bhayam. The Dvitiyabhanabeshitak said it begins with becoming absorbed in the dualities of the material world. Syat means brings about. Ishada Petasya. And you turn away from the Isha. No, that's the whole point. We turn away from the Isha toward this duality world, and then we become attracted, and we lose our connection. Isha Viparhiyo Asmati, you forget everything. And everything's reversed. Instead of being the servant, you try to become the master of the material world. So then you go, Tanmayato, by the force of Maya. This is happening. He has this external energy that can cover us if we express our desire to enjoy material energy. So if one is intelligent, Buddha Abhajetam, one should now turn back to that Lord and start worshiping Him. How? Bhakti Aikayesham, with one point in devotional service, Ahoitakiya Pratiyat, you come back to that. So how do I know? Guru Deva Tatma. by revering the Guru as one's very self and worshipable Lord. And it's Sakshataritvena. So this is how we overcome fear, is by transcending the material concept of life. That's what the bodily concept of life, that's where the fear is, through the process of bhakti yoga. But it's important to know, where this fear is, because Prabhupada was once asked, what is your experience when you chant Hare Krishna? What do you feel? Fearlessness. And if you're really completely absorbed on a pure level, then, and Prabhupada's, I'll end here, on a morning walk, Prabhupada's going around, and they came to this memorial, Victoria Memorial in Calcutta. I never see it. It's very big and ornate, right? They built it in British Britain. And while they were building it, there was a big scaffold, and Prabhupada, as a young boy, climbed that scaffold up to the top. He told them that as he's walking past it. And one of the devotees said, "Oh, Prabhupada, you were so brave." He says, "I'm still so brave." That's how he came to America. So associated with you guys. So that's one of the characteristics of the great acharyas and the sadhus, the tikshava karunika suridaksavadehi. So we should try to emulate as far as possible. Okay, any discussion on these points? We're hearing about the glories of the Ganges and Kapila Dev and all of these things. This Canto 9. No, can we get a mic on him? There's one back there on the shelf. One on the hundi.
About Shiva and him being the greatest devotee, or Vaishnava Anamita Shambhu. What about devotees chanting? Because nowadays, throughout the world, there's more and more of a kirtan culture coming up, in a sense, at least among some people. But throughout the world, kirtan's going on now, and devotees may feel that they need to chant other mantras besides Hare Krishna. So what about that chanting of Shiva mantra? And actually, I don't think it happened in Prabhupada's time with his disciples, but it's definitely happening now with grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Very well-known, famous singers chanting Shiva.
Singers means guys who grew up in
Kirtan means initiated devotees, Kirtan singers in ISKCON members, chanting Om Namo Shivaya and so on. Just the question is, what about that?
That was definitely discouraged by Prabhupada. I chanted Om Namo Shivaya at my second Hatha Yoga studio. We had a little meditation. It's just integral yoga, and so we did the exercises, we did the breathing, then there was a little kirtan, and one of them was Om Namo Shivaya, Om Namo Shivaya, like that. And we had a few others. But Hare Krishna was in there too, So I think that's a deviation. I didn't even know about that. I knew the kirtans were going on. I didn't know it was going on by devotees out of ISKCON. No, I don't have a quote at hand, but I think that Prabhupada, obviously, we're reading this Namamrita, there's so many quotes from the books. I think the next one will go to the other book, which is quotes from Prabhupada's lectures and conversations, on the holy name. But it's, why, don't you, suppose you die while you chant that, you're not going back to Krishna Loka. I don't think. You can chant, I would say, okay, you want to, worship Shiva, you want to chant some of this wonderful prayer that he said. He's what is Shiva chanting? He's not chanting Om Namo Shivaya, he's chanting with mantras to Krishna. So if you really want to worship Shiva as he wants to be worshipped, not just saying worship him for material things. That's like something it's like you can just say rolling his eyes, oh boy, here they go again, okay, here, take this. But someone comes like the Prachetas and they're receptive, he teaches them this wonderful prayer which they chant in 10,000 years on the water, and it's a prayer to Vishnu, obviously. So I don't see any scope for that in real strict Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It's kind of a concession, but it's dangerous because when you try to get back into giving that this is the ultimate philosophy and this is the ultimate mantra, then people say, wait a minute, I heard you chant Om Namo Shivaya at that Shiva studio, So you lose your credibility if you're not strict. So I wouldn't. I don't see any scope for that. I mean, in genuine ISKCON, does that happen in ISKCON temples too?
ISKCON, not temples, but that I've seen, but like kirtan events organized by these particular devotees, where they bring people come.
Okay, yeah. I just have a one request, a humble request. Let's not start doing that in the lounge. If Maharaj hears about it, then that'll be the end of the lounge. Yes, Trijamani.
Just following this question, what should we do when we happen to be in a kirtan like that? All of a sudden, we didn't know, but it's taking place. How should we respectfully?
You can leave. Or when the chorus comes, you can loudly chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. See what happens. I just think it's a dangerous deviation. I wouldn't. Heavens to Betsy. Yeah, I don't know what you can do. I would see the default is to leave, or you could carry heavy. Don't immediately put on the headphones, and they'll know that you're listening to something else. Yes. Naveed.
I had a question about like during class you were talking about something offered with love is obviously appreciated, and kind of like in our relationships we can kind of also experience that somebody does like cooks for us or something. Yeah. Like we appreciate that. But then I was wondering, like, how do we understand like austerities being pleasing to Krishna? Because I was thinking, like, I guess for like a Kaddashi, or like if somebody were to like fast for my sake, I'd feel uncomfortable. Like I wouldn't.
If someone would fast for you?
Yeah, or like sleep on the floor for my sake, then it's like don't do that. Like it. So why is it pleasing to Krishna? I guess.
Well, the idea I think is that Krishna's in the Bhagavad Gita. As Prabhupada says in some lecture, that it's the preliminaries, the science of God is essential, But Lord Krishna came again in this Kali Yuga, he came in the Kali Yuga as Lord Chaitanya. He doesn't always come. I think he only comes when Krishna comes, right? That's what I understand. That's also once every 5,000 years, or once every day of Brahma, which is 800 billions of years. So we're very fortunate to have this, and it's important to understand how the science works, and to take advantage of the like we're having this wonderful kirtan in a couple of days. You haven't been here for one of these yet, yeah. So my own realization, if you can call it that, is that the public kirtan, and Prabhupada said, you should not stop it, even though Bhakti distribution became prominent, or most prominent form of Sankirtan. But he still wanted those Harinams to go on, and so at least in special events, devotees do them, but they should daily if possible. But that's such a potent practice for one's own purification, because it's dancing and chanting, and it's absorption in the holy name. And it's giving others to hear the holy name. So that essential element of trying to help others, that awakening that compassionate nature, is there in every kind of Sankirtan where you're going at. So that element, and I'm sorry, what was the import of the question again?
I guess I was wondering, like, with performing austerities being pleasing to Krishna, like I can't really think of, like, in my experience, like if somebody were to do something like that for me, it would be pleasing to me. It would just be kind of like.
No, but that's because you're a humble Vaishnava. That's what in other words, Krishna knows that when we sacrifice our own comfort for him, this is good for us. He doesn't need anything from us, but he sees it's a demonstration of one's sincerity. If one undergoes some trouble to serve him, and actually for the Kali Yugites just to, walk into the temple, what to speak of join the temple, even if you don't stay for the rest of your life, that's a tremendous step forward, because who's doing it? People are performing all kinds of austerities to make money and enjoy, but that just deepens your degradation. But if you're actually, undergoing some austerity for service, that shows your sincerity, and Krishna, he's in our heart. So what is he? He bestows more attraction. Let me give you one example of this. This is a devotee who's been in Miami for many, many years, since 1968, I understand. He never left. And so at one point, he was one of the pujaris, who was also cooking the sweets, the daily sweets. So one day, somehow, I don't know, maybe there was some flu going around or something, he was the only one cooking the sweets. So he had to make the burfi, he had to make the sandesh, and we had pera at that time and some other things. So it was basically all night he was cooking. Finally, he was able to come in the morning and offer the sweets to the deities. He's tired and everything. So he comes. So he's walking across the altar, getting ready to put the plates on. He looks up, and there's Krishna. They have the beautiful Radha Krishna deities there. And he said the smile looked like 10 times more bright and friendly than they saw it as a miracle. This was the reciprocation of his undergoing the austerity to do that. And that's really present throughout. Prabhupada, he was, he's on the platform of pure devotee the whole time. He was in India doing, so many austerities to preach, print the books. But when he finally got on that boat, there's a beautiful essay. I'd like, if you're not Bhakti Vikas Swami's book about Prabhupada, I forget what the title is, but there are different chapters, and one is just meditating on him getting on the Jaladuta, what that meant and all the implications of it, And so it's a way of, we accept austerity. It's just like, think of this. I give the example. Someone grows up and they have a pretty athletic body, and they get the idea because every 4 years they're able to watch the Olympics, on TV or something, or maybe they even go. Said, boy, I think I can do that. I can run, or I can jump. Maybe I'll become a long. What do they call it? A three-part long jump, triple jump. Okay, makes sense. Anyway, so he gets that idea, and then he's pretty good in grade school, and then in high school he joins the track team, and he's practicing. He's sincere. And at a certain point, it looks like, okay, with training, you could actually do it, but it's not easy. Diet, training, So I want to do it, So he accepts the austerity because it's the prize there, the gold medal, the honors, it's material. But that's what happens on the material plane. People are accepting all kinds of austerities. Just like this thing, we get up early at 4. People are on the highway at 4 in the morning because of the traffic to get to some job, it's 50 miles away. Why? So you got to make money, pay this, So austerity is just part of the material world. But if we're able to undergo the authorized austerities for our purification, to please Krishna ultimately, and that's the idea in which we do it. That's the real motive. Then we find that we're making a real advancement. Meaning advancement means our material desires are waning down. We can control it much more easily. And our attraction to Krishna, and chanting Krishna, doing all the services is growing. So that's an essential part of it. It's all there in the nectar of instruction. It's really very scientific. These things will stop your advancement, and these things will improve your advancement. So both of them are austerities, giving up the things that will stop and taking. But once you get to that point, then he talks about really getting a taste for chanting and like that. So it's a question of the intelligence being purified so you can control the lower self. So look, I know that this is a fact, A, B, C, and D, and therefore that requires that I undergo this austerity. So the mind may be saying this, or the body is rejecting and saying, no, we're going to do it. And after a while, that becomes your habit. Just like getting up, there's no way, that I can get up late and just sleep in. There's no question of it. I get up, 2:30, 3 at the latest. And I've been doing that for 50 years. And it's not like, oh, again? No, it's like it's part of me now, and it's a blessing. So that's the austerity turns into an offering. The austerity turns into a way in which you can stay strong and show your sincerity. So that's all I can say on that. And I've gone way over time. I'm so sorry. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. I didn't get to do my poem, but it's a traditional Monday night. We have class 7:15 to 8:15. I always end with a poem, so I'll make sure. Hari Bol.